On August 18, 2024, the Israeli Defense Forces issued a mandatory evacuation order for residents of Khan Yunis. This densely populated city, located in the southern Gaza Strip, is home to hundreds of thousands of Palestinians. The IDF claims the evacuation is necessary for the safety of civilians.
The Hamas terrorist group fired rocket towards Israel from the designated humanitarian zone, raising concern of human shield. The evacuation order prompted immediate fear and confusion. Thousands of families were forced to leave their homes. Many sought refuge in UN-run schools and shelters already overcrowded from previous conflicts. The evacuation has disrupted daily life in Khan Yunis. Schools and businesses are closed. Access to healthcare and other essential services is severely limited. The situation has created a sense of panic and desperation among the displaced population. Many have experienced displacement multiple times. They face the trauma of leaving their homes and the uncertainty of their future. The evacuation order has deepened the humanitarian crisis in Gaza, already grappling with poverty and conflict.
The evacuation order in Khan Yunis has exacerbated the already dire humanitarian situation in Gaza. The influx of displaced people has overwhelmed shelters and aid organizations. Resources are stretched thin.
The United Nations estimates that over 1 million people in Gaza need humanitarian assistance. The ongoing conflict has made it extremely challenging for aid organizations to operate. Access to Gaza is restricted. The delivery of essential supplies like food, water and medicine is constantly disrupted. The safety of aid workers is also a major concern. The humanitarian situation in Khan Yunis is particularly concerning. Hospitals are struggling to cope with the influx of patients. There's a shortage of essential medicines and medical supplies. The evacuation has also raised concerns about the spread of diseases. Overcrowded shelters with limited sanitation facilities pose a serious health risk.
Israel maintains that the evacuation order in Khan Yunis is a necessary security measure. They argue that Hamas embeds its military infrastructure within civilian areas. This tactic, they claim, puts civilians at risk during Israeli operations against Hamas targets. Israel insists that the evacuation aims to minimize civilian casualties.
Hamas, on the other hand, condemns the evacuation as a form of collective punishment. They accuse Israel of using disproportionate force against Palestinian civilians. Hamas claims that their presence in civilian areas is a direct result of Israel's ongoing blockade of Gaza. This blockade, they argue, severely restricts their movement and limits their options. The international community remains divided on the legitimacy of the evacuation order. Some countries support Israel's right to defend itself against Hamas attacks. Others criticize the evacuation order, calling it a violation of international law. The use of human shields is a war crime. Both sides have been accused of employing this tactic.
The escalating violence in Gaza, including the evacuation order in Khan Yunis, has drawn widespread international condemnation. The United Nations has called for an immediate ceasefire. They urge both sides to respect international humanitarian law and protect civilians. Several countries and international organizations have condemned the evacuation order as a violation of the Fourth Geneva Convention. This convention prohibits the forced displacement of civilians during wartime. These nations call on Israel to rescind the evacuation order and allow residents to return to their homes safely. Despite international pressure, a ceasefire remains elusive. Both Israel and Hamas blame each other for the ongoing violence. Each side has set preconditions for a ceasefire that the other deems unacceptable. The international community continues to push for a diplomatic solution, urging both sides to engage in good faith negotiations.
The ongoing conflict in Gaza has created a deeply uncertain future for its people. The evacuation order in Khan Yunis is just the latest chapter in a long and bloody conflict. The people of Gaza continue to endure hardship, violence, and displacement. The humanitarian crisis in Gaza is unlikely to improve without a political solution. The underlying issues of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, including the Israeli blockade and the status of Hamas, remain unresolved. The international community faces the challenge of finding a way to break the cycle of violence and create the conditions for a lasting peace. This will require addressing the legitimate security concerns of Israel while upholding the human rights of Palestinians. The situation in Gaza is a stark reminder of the human cost of conflict. The international community must prioritize peace and work towards a just and sustainable solution for both Israelis and Palestinians.